Stephen Silas laying down the law for the Houston Rockets in regards to Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood. Garrison Mathews makes his return to the Rockets lineup. Jalen Green's offensive struggles against the 76ers and more coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
With the second pick in the 2021 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Jalen Green.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep getting better every day. I'm going to keep perfecting my craft. And every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian, and also host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets. We thank you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is the new app that helps you save your money by helping you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need or want, and can even negotiate better deals on the ones that you want to keep. So be sure to go check out our friends over at TrueBill. Now, this is a bit of a catch-up episode, unfortunately, because late Monday evening after the 76ers game, for the third time in the last 3 to 4 months, my computer decided to blue screen on me, and I was honestly so defeated that I just kind of went to bed and gave up on life. So that was all kinds of fun, and then I got it fixed up Tuesday morning, mid-afternoon, whatever time it was. So bit of a catch-up episode here, but I want to lay the groundwork for what we're tackling in today's show. Going to talk a little bit about the decisions by Stephen Silas to suspend KPJ and Christian Wood, because I think that's worth covering to go over how that situation kind of resolved itself, as well as talking about some of the storylines from the 76ers game. We had Garrison Mathews finally back in the Rockets lineup. He had a big night. Jalen Green's offensive struggles and a few other storylines from that one. It's also worth noting really quick before we get into the suspension stuff with KPJ and Wood, that Armani Brooks and Usman Garuba are both currently in health and safety protocols. And then as far as any updates on the Alperen Sengun front with his injury, the team said that they would wait a week and then that he would be reevaluated. So we should find out more information on what's going on with Al P and how much longer he'll be out. Probably around this Friday, I would assume. Either Friday or Saturday will be when we get our first official timetable update on Alperen Sengun. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the decision by Stephen Silas. I'm going to run back a couple clips from pregame before the 76ers game even took place, of Silas kind of going over his decision-making process regarding KPJ and Wood. And this first one I think is really important because Silas highlights that there are differences in the situation with Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood, which I think is really, really important, because I viewed the situations differently in my first podcast reacting to the events of New Year's Day halftime shenanigans against the Nuggets. So I think the situations are different, and apparently so does Stephen Silas.
They're kind of being lumped together, which I understand because it's the same game. But as far as Kevin, he, like I said, we had a spirited debate. He lost his temper at halftime to the point where I thought for what would be best for the team and the best for our culture as a group, and the just making sure that everybody is on the same page. I thought it would be best for him to be suspended for today's game. Christian, we had a disagreement as far as him going back into the game in the second half. And I decided it would be best for the team. And it's very much attached to accountability for everybody on our team. And my job is to hold people accountable to their actions and not overreact at all, but react appropriately. So that was the decision.
So as far as Stephen Silas's decisions to handle KPJ and Christian Wood, suspensions for both of them. I would assume both are going to be back on the floor and active for the game against the Washington Wizards Wednesday evening. Now, that said, I think if you kind of read between the lines a little bit with what Stephen Silas said there, and then also, through the rest of his pregame presser, I think it's very apparent that the situations are being viewed differently from Silas and from the organization. Because with Kevin Porter Jr., and again, this was the impression that I got previously after everything had first happened, and we were all kind of still reacting to it right before any official decisions had come out of the organization about them. But with KPJ, it seems like there's an understanding that his emotions got the better of him, but that it's not a deal breaker, and that yes, he needs to be, punished accordingly for it. That's why the suspension happened, all of that. But with Christian Wood, it almost seems like there's like a resignation factor there. And again, I thought the situations were two very completely different things because again, from my standpoint, it's KPJ was frustrated as a competitor, as somebody who, was frustrated with the way things were going, whereas Christian Wood just completely gave up, right? KPJ being, set aside saying, hey, it's too much right now, too emotional, all that. Whereas Christian Wood just gave up. And for me, give me the guy that wants to compete at the highest level. Give me the guy that's upset about how things are going rather than the guy who just tucks his tail between his legs and gives up. Right. And so I think that right now, with how the situation has been handled by the organization, I think you have to absolutely commend Stephen Silas for putting his foot down and making an example of these two and basically saying, holding them accountable, right? That's what he said. He's all about accountability, and it's his job as the head coach to establish that culture. Later, when asked in the pregame presser about, was there any back and forth on his decision to, carry out a suspension on, for two of his best players versus having to, be shorthanded and like balancing his desire to win. And he said there is no like conflict because it's about what's right and about establishing the right culture and the right mindset. And, he's the leader of that group of guys in the locker room. And so I think that, for anybody that wants to point at Stephen Silas and say, oh, he's in over his head, he doesn't know what he's doing, I think that there's a side of Stephen Silas that we're not exactly privy to. He seems very easygoing and pleasant with the media, but at the same time, I think that when he needs to, he's absolutely putting his foot down and controlling that locker room. And a big part of that, which I've spoken about before, is the fact that this team plays hard and fights hard for him. And the fact that guys are bought in, the fact that guys are frustrated enough to want to speak out. There was additional reporting that came out from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN that cited that there was a player that, was directly challenging Christian Wood in the Rockets locker room. And a lot of people are pointing towards like Jae'Sean Tate as like the guy. And I would absolutely 110% be like, yeah, it was probably Jae'Sean. But it could have been, it could have been any number of players on the Rockets roster that were directly challenging Christian Wood and expecting him to set a better example as, one of the, veterans of the team. But I think that overall, the way that they're handling this KPJ situation, I didn't expect this to be a deal breaker with KPJ. And later on in the pregame presser, Stephen Silas shared his thoughts on the situation with KPJ. And I thought it was really important what he had to say. So let's run that back really quick.
And he's emotional. He's a competitor. He's a good kid. He owns up to his mistakes when he makes them and tries not to make mistakes again. And that's pretty much all you can ask from a guy. So yeah, we put a lot into him, and we knew that he had a past before he came here. But, we hold everybody accountable to what they do. And he crossed the line, and he'll be back. And we'll still love him. We'll still grow with him. And everything will be okay. So, we spent a lot of time. And for this to be blown out of proportion. It should not be. It should be a bump in the road, and we continue on, because if you really love somebody, you don't take one instance and say that's it, or make it to where it's more than it is. You love them, and then when stuff like this happens, you love them even more.
Wow. I mean, Stephen Silas is a quote machine, but that was a really, really powerful quote. You love them even more. And I think that is almost kind of the embodiment of Stephen Silas as a head coach. And I think that all too often we forget about like the human element of this game that I cover, that we are fans of, that we love, that we live and breathe, right? And this understanding by Stephen Silas that it's a bump in the road and it shouldn't be blown out of proportion is huge. I wasn't ready to give up on KPJ. A lot of Rockets fans weren't ready to give up on KPJ after this. But then there was, a small subsection of people that were like, "Oh, this is exactly what happened in Cleveland, and trade him, get him out of here, all this stuff." No, like, it's a learning experience. They grow, they move past it. KPJ has already expressed his, apologies for how he lost his temper, how he handled things. And if anything, this situation and hearing Stephen Silas talk about that has kind of re-solidified my belief in him as the coach to help guide this young Rockets team, at least in the, in the immediate future, because that's the kind of guy you want to have in your corner as a head coach, right? And we can criticize and critique some of the X's and O's stuff and the timeouts, lineups. Yeah, sure. Stephen Silas is also still just a sophomore head coach. He's still figuring stuff out himself. But that type of person, that like Stephen Silas is just a good person, right? Good head on his shoulders. And to be the leader of this Rockets team, to be the one establishing the culture in this Rockets locker room, that's exactly the kind of person you want at the helm of a team. So coming up, I do want to talk about the actual game that took place against the Philadelphia 76ers, and we're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at TrueBill, because look, you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your hard-earned money. Download TrueBill to finally take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 per year with TrueBill because companies make subscriptions so hard to cancel. TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap, one click, one button press. It is that easy. TrueBill has over 2 million users and has helped them save over $100 million. So don't fall for any more subscription scams. Start canceling today at TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. That's TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. That's TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, where we thank you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. For your next listen, go check out Locked On Now, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the new Locked On NBA YouTube channel. So let's get into this Rockets 76ers game, in which the Rockets played a really competitive first half of basketball. Things kind of, Rockets losing their footing a bit in that third quarter. I mean, hey, they led at halftime, right? They led by 1 at halftime. So things were actually looking pretty solid, all things considered, with no Christian Wood, no Kevin Porter Jr., going up against Joel Embiid. And for the most part, the Rockets' defensive scheme was working in the first half. They were flat out doubling Joel Embiid incessantly, forcing the ball out of his hands, making him a playmaker. But at the end of the day, Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid, and he was getting his as the game wore on. Finished the night with 31 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, a triple-double on 12 of 20 shooting. It was a ridiculous night for Joel Embiid. He basically got whatever he wanted right at the rim whenever the Rockets didn't double-team him or doubled him late. I mean, if he had Daniel Tice sealed under the rim, it was good night. It was all she wrote. It was ridiculous. But in this game, the Rockets did get Garrison Mathews back, and he had a huge night in his return to the Rockets lineup. Garrison Mathews was sorely missed, and he's, one of the reasons that moving forward, he just changes the complexion of the team offensively, defensively. He gives them so much on both sides of the basketball. Finished the night with 23 points on 6 of 10 shooting, 4 of 8 from behind the three-point line, and was also 7 of 8 at the free throw line. And I think that's a big part of Garrison Mathews' game that he's starting to kind of figure out now. Some chunk of those free throws were from being fouled on 3-point shots, which was great, right? Got fouled in the corner on one of them, got the 4-point play on another one. So part of it was just lack of discipline by the 76ers defenders. But I think there's a part of Garrison's game where he's learning how to take advantage of when defenses are overplaying him. And there's 2 instances specifically that stand out from this game. One of them was a sideline out of bounds play where the Rockets have run this a few times now, where they run that baseline out of bounds play, and you've got Garrison who's coming off of a slight curl, and he just dives towards the rim because it looks like at first he's kind of curling out towards the 3-point line, and then he just turns on the jets and cuts in towards the rim. And usually it's like Kevin Porter Jr. is handling the passing from the inbounds pass. There we go. Words. What are they? And we've seen KPJ and Garrison Mathews connect on a handful of those so far this season. And so Garrison Mathews hit that curl and went immediately up for the shot, got fouled, didn't get the and one, didn't make the shot, but then got to the free throw line off of that. And then there was another situation where, because Garrison Mathews was connecting on so many threes in this one and was really feasting behind the arc, there was a point where Garrison was coming off of a pin down and had hit a 3-point shot on the weak side of the floor, coming off of a pin down screen. And he was one play before he hit the 3. Then he came back down on the very next play or a couple plays later and ran the exact same action, but instead of coming all the way across the screen, he waited until the defender was on his hip and then dove towards the rim and got immediately hit with the pass and was able to get an easy 2 right at the cup. And it's those moments from Garrison, as he's getting used to the way that defenses are starting to overplay him and respect him as a shooter. He's on opposing scouting reports now. Teams understand that they cannot leave him open, or they understand that a lot of his offense is generated by off-ball movement, and where he's going to be coming off of screens, or he's going to be relocating to opposite corners and stuff to try and find open spots, or just running out in transition and spotting up at the 3-point line and hoping somebody can find him to create. So I think that's a nice little growth and a nice little wrinkle in Gary Bird's game as defenses are continuing to get accustomed to having to, account for him on a nightly basis. So seeing him take advantage of those moments is huge. One of the other lines that I've got from this game, before I get into the Jalen Green stuff, because I want to do that in the next segment, is Jae'Sean Tate. And first off, I will say that for a game where the Rockets only had legitimately one center in Daniel Theis, which I will say that the offensively, especially in the second half, it was kind of a train wreck. Daniel Theis finished with more shot attempts than Jalen Green, and that is a travesty of the highest order. Theis finished with 13 shots, 3 of 12 from the floor, 1 of 7 from the 3-point line. Jalen Green finished 3 of 12 from the floor, and that's just can't happen. There's zero reason ever in all time for Daniel Theis to finish with more shot attempts than Jalen Green. It's unacceptable. That said, for a game where the Rockets only had legitimately the one center, I do want to give some shout outs to Jae'Sean Tate and David Nwaba, who both played spectacularly well in the absence of a true center on the floor. Stephen Silas kind of staggering his lineups to a bit to where he would have Jae'Sean Tate and David Nwaba kind of out there at the same time to make up for the fact that one of those two guys had to be checking Joel Embiid for portions of this game when Daniel Theis wasn't on the floor. So I do kind of like that chess match there from Stephen Silas, trying to figure out how he was going to contain Joel Embiid without Daniel Theis, even though he was trying his best to match Daniel Theis's minutes to Joel Embiid. The Rockets were just so much worse off with Daniel Theis on the floor. Ultimately, they wound up playing some of their best basketball in that second quarter when Daniel Theis was sitting. So nothing new there, unfortunately. It's Joel Embiid. He's a handful, and at least offensively, they were able to kind of cause some mismatches with having a bunch of wings on the floor and being switchable and being able to double Joel Embiid that way, forced other guys to beat you rather than offensively the black hole on offense that Daniel Tice is at times, unfortunately. My point on Jae'Sean Tate, though, that's kind of a little aside there. Tate needs to be better about his foul trouble, or not foul trouble specifically, but about fouling. I think that it's just he takes some really bad fouls at times, and I've harped on this before, and I don't like it when he takes take fouls in transition, and even Ryan Hollins talks about it on the broadcast quite often. Jae'Sean Tate is such an integral part of this Rockets team that, especially on a night where you don't know how that night was going to go, having to guard Joel Embiid and who was going to be in foul trouble and who wasn't, to see Jae'Sean Tate take a take foul in that situation, I'd rather them give up an easy transition bucket than Jae'Sean Tate ever take a take foul in transition, unless the team is up by 15, 20 points or something, and it's so that he can check out of the game because it's garbage time and the bench players are coming in, right? That's fine. And then he had another one where he fouled Andre Drummond, under the basket, swiping at the ball, trying to steal it, get an offensive rebound, from Andre Drummond, 90 feet away from, their own basket. It was bad. So don't like either of those fouls from Jae'Sean Tate. I want to see that part of his game cleaned up specifically. But coming up, I do want to talk about Jalen Green's offensive struggles in this game. And we're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar. Because look, it's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your New Year's plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Honestly, maybe even better than a candy bar, right? Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or gritty, or the consistency is just a little bit off, right? And the flavors, they've got so many great options to choose from. Strawberry, cookies and cream, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter, my personal favorite, coconut brownie chunk. You can't go wrong with a single bar on their menu, and you can check them out. Just visit built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And another message from our friends over at betonline.ag, because BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of your sports action this season. So head over to their website and use your promo code that's locked on. So again, promo code locked on for a 50% welcome bonus on your very first deposit. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season, as well as the rest of the 2022 season, right? BetOnline does not stop. The year's rolling over. BetOnline stays fresh. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. We thank you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. Be sure to tune back in for our next episode, as we'll be recapping the fingers crossed, no blue screen of death. We'll be recapping the Rockets-Wizards game Wednesday evening. Now, for your second listen, go check out Locked On Bets. Make yourself a little bit of money, right? Your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. That's Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Now, I want to talk about Jalen Green's game against the Philadelphia 76ers, because unfortunately, Green had his first bad game back from the hamstring injury, finishing with just 12 points on 3 of 12 shooting. He had a couple turnovers, no assists, just 3 rebounds, only 1 of 5 from the three-point line. And it kind of looked like to me that Green was being a little, the decisiveness wasn't quite there. There was some indecision in his game. And so I asked Stephen Silas about it post-game. What did you think of Jalen's decision-making coming off of pin downs and out of dribble handoffs tonight?
It was okay. There were times where they were going under and he wasn't prepared for the under. So we'll watch that tomorrow and get it fixed. And, when you have a center, well, 2 centers like they had in Embiid and Drummond, and you're trying to turn the corner, those are two big dudes that you're trying to turn the corner and go at. So it's probably, he's never seen that before, I would think. And then there were times where, like I said, they were going under. So new experience for him, 19 years old, he'll learn from it, just like he has kind of learned as we've gone along and get better. But yeah, the dribble handoffs and that kind of thing were a little bit more difficult because of the way that they were playing.
So Stephen Silas sharing his thoughts and insight on how Jalen was approaching, or how Jalen was approaching the way that the 76ers were defending him in this game. And it kind of matches my eye test from what I saw during the game. Again, some moments where he just wasn't quite ready for what the defense was throwing at him. And I do think, to Stephen Silas's credit, right, when he's talking about Embiid and Drummond, and that those are some big dudes. At one point, Jalen Green went in, tried to, get a shot up at the rim, and Embiid erased it, right? So that had to have kind of been sticking with him a little bit. Not to say that he was like afraid of driving at that point, but it just felt like, again, he wasn't hitting quite like the driving angles as quickly as he needed to, making those decisions. If he had made them, half second sooner, been a bit more sure of himself in this game, maybe we're talking about another 20-point outing from Jalen Green. But I don't want to make too much of it because, again, like Stephen Silas said, right, he's just 19. He's still a kid. He's still a rookie. He's still figuring things out. And I think there was a lot of pressure maybe kind of going into this game with no KPJ, no Christian Wood, all the turmoil that the team was facing. And Jalen Green had been performing really, really well coming into this game, coming back from the hamstring injury. And so, not that he was like set up to fail in this one, but we need to also kind of temper our expectations and realize, hey, he's still figuring things out. He's still learning. And I don't think we need to like suddenly freak out and be like, oh, he had a bad game. No, it's bump in the road. Bad games happen, and they're going to look at the film. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to move forward with it. Now, I will say that Rockets fans were largely frustrated that Jalen only played 27 minutes in this game. And they were largely frustrated with the lineups in this one. And I will say that I don't know why, frankly, especially so Jalen checked back in kind of later in the second quarter, but it really felt like that lineup that was on the floor kind of had things going. And, we're really kind of in control of stuff in that second quarter. So maybe I understand Stephen Silas waiting a little bit longer to put Jalen back in the second quarter. And then as far as the end of the game goes, like the game was kind of over. Like I'm not like, yeah, I mean, and it's not that Jalen's on like an active minutes restriction, but he is still fresh back from a hamstring injury that they're trying to monitor. Right. And he had already had kind of some struggles in this game specifically, where just offensively, certain things, certain shots weren't falling for him. He was just 1 of 5 from behind the 3-point line. He wasn't, driving with near as confidence. He was missing some bunnies right at the rim. And so I think that maybe just like ease up on Stephen Silas, right? Like, I think like Stephen Silas catches a lot of flack for really like no good reason, I think. And I've been highly critical of Stephen Silas. Like I've like sat here and been like, why the hell is he doing XYZ? Why is this happening? Why isn't this happening? Like what's going? But I don't think like being upset that Jalen played 27 minutes versus 32 minutes is like a reason to be upset. Jalen was having an off night. Maybe Stephen Silas saw that and elected to not like throw him back into the deep end and continue to struggle in the fourth quarter. And if you're sitting there like foaming at the mouth saying, oh, he needs all the minutes he can get, he's like, I mean, sure. Like, yeah, but maybe there is such a thing in Stephen Silas's mind as like unproductive minutes and reps on the floor, right? If Jalen's having an off night, if he's struggling against a specific look that a defense is giving him and not like finding the seams, not finding the spots where he needs to be successful against a certain team in particular, then why throw him back out there to continue struggling? Why not, let him rest, let him chill for a little bit. You pull him out and then you revisit the film tape and you say, hey, or the film tape, you revisit the game. I mean, technically film tapes, right? Anyways, you revisit the game tape, right? And you say, hey, these are the spots that I saw you struggling in. And you go over that film and then you get it right for the next time that these two teams play, or the next time that Jalen Green is on the floor, or the next time he sees a defense kind of like this one. But I don't think you should be up in arms about Jalen playing just 27 minutes in a blowout. Like, that's just my 2 cents. And you can disagree with me on that if you want. I don't sit here and I'm not telling you what to think. Those are just my thoughts on it. Worth noting, couple throwaways here at the end of the pod. Some things that I didn't get to dive into specifically, but shout out to Jae'Sean Tate and largely the Rockets bench unit, which again, I do think that the bench unit did a really incredible job, especially in that second quarter, kind of taking control of the game a little bit. And shout out to Jae'Sean Tate and Josh Christopher really stepping up as far as playmaking is concerned without having Kevin Porter Jr. in this game. Josh Christopher had that one crazy lob to Jalen Green, which was so electric. Love watching Jalen Green catch lob passes because he gets so high in the air. And then KJ Martin was playing like an absolute man in this game, absolutely all over the glass, both ends of the floor. And I think that that's a way that KJ can continue to, carve out significant rotation minutes because there's it's hard to quantify having a guy that can like crash the offensive glass the way that he does, right? As a leaper, as somebody who times his rebounding really, really well. He finished with 8 rebounds. 5 of them were on the offensive glass, right? And being able to get those second chance opportunities either for himself right there at the rim or kickouts for 3-pointers, those are huge. And those opportunities are like momentum builders that can really like turn the tide of a game in your favor. So shout out to KJ Martin for his production. Shout out to, again, David Nwaba, who continues to be a consummate professional. And whether he's asked to guard LeBron James or whether he's asked to guard Joel Embiid or whether he's asked to guard Russell Westbrook, it doesn't matter. Like, David Nwaba just goes out there and does what he's supposed to do. Trae Young, in the Rockets' comeback win against Atlanta, Dave just goes out there. Shout out Uncle Dave. He, lays it all out every single time he goes to play. Doesn't take shortcuts. I think that he is exactly the type of veteran that you want on this team, a guy that can, he can collect a few DMPs, and then when it's time for his number to be called, he's going to check in and give it all he's got every single time. So just wanted to highlight him. And it was also really good having DJ Augustine back out there, although DJ definitely not one of his better games in a Rockets jersey. Still nice to see him back out there on the floor. So with that, that's going to do it for this episode. As always, thanks for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, the brand new Odyssey app, free and available on all platforms. Also, check out the new Locked On Rockets YouTube channel. Search Locked On Rockets on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. What was your favorite thing about this Rockets 76ers game? I know it was an L, but there were some good storylines from it and a productive half of basketball before Joel Embiid became too much for this Rockets team. So what was your favorite thing from this game? Let me know in the comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.